pass then the word to Vanessa.
Thank you, Leo. So this is the 9th step in the Christ conscious feelings, and it's the power of charity. It's actually all based mostly on chapter 15 of the Gospel according to Spirit. So this was published in 1864, at a time that science didn't talk about charity at all, but now it does. But way before science, if we go back to almost like Moses' time, if we go to the Psalms, which are so beautiful, those poems of spirituality, and you know, as Haroldo Dutra has said already, those poems, they were passed on generation after generation. Can you believe it? Us quoting them generation after generation. And it says in Psalm 11, don't we love it? Yeah. Talking about the power of charity. Those who refresh others are themselves refreshed. Isn't that amazing? In the Gospel according to Spiritism, it says, chapter 15. It's like 28 chapters, and there's one that says, without charity, there's no salvation. What salvation is this? Do we want to be saved from what? I mean, are we in danger? Are we threatened by something that we need to be saved? So we need Superman maybe? You never know. Spider-Man nowadays. Or X-Men. Or all these Marvel's heroes. They're really out there, and people are like, oh my God, when we feel a moment of crisis, we need to be saved. And the spirits say, only charity can save. Like, what is this? Is this upside down? So way before the Spirit said that, other minds came and said, well, those who refresh others are refreshed. So if I console somebody, I feel consoled. How? But what is charity? So in a true account of a Spanish medium, famous in Spiritism, Amália Domingo Solar, in a book that is not in English yet, but it's worth reading. It's in Spanish and in Portuguese. Reincarnation in Life, Encarnação e Vida. She said, in one of the chapters, there was a lady who lived 30 years of her life normally. Suddenly, she got into a deep coma and stayed in that, she said, cataleptic state, because at the time they didn't have the word coma, okay? For 30 years, 32 years, and then came back to life. Can you imagine? You live 30 years, suddenly you stay in a coma, and you keep being there in a vegetative state for 32 years, and then you wake up. And it's like, what year is this? 2012? No! 2044. 2044? No. What happened? True account. And many people came to her and said, Amália, because she was a spiritist. And what do we learn? If you do something this life, next life you pay, right? It's not like that. And Amália thought as well. She says, well, when I heard about this case and people brought it to me because they wanted to know why, first thing came to my mind was, and she says, man, in English modern words, man, I think this lady has probably committed a huge crime, and that's why she was paying. Isn't that what we think when somebody's suffering? If we're in that mind of thought, we're in bad shape. Because Father Germain, the mentor of Amalia Dominguez Soler, when she asked him to explain and said, hey, Father Germain, I think she really did something really bad to deserve to be 32 years in prison in that body, he comes and the first thing he says is, you're not being charitable when you think that way. This is not charity, Amalia. So he first lectures her and say, your thought is a very judgmental thought, and you're not helping. Because what you think is eye for an eye, not necessarily. And then he continues explaining, and he says, you know, she actually asked for it. She asked to experience that. So she was not actually punished per se. She said voluntarily, I want it. And she didn't need it. And we're like, why? 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 Because, of course, in a previous life, she was a queen. The woman in the story. She doesn't say, I don't remember the name, and better not even saying the names, because everything is recorded in the ether of the universe. So when we say things, we evoke. So we respect, and we take it, as Father Germain said, as a lesson for us. Lesson of charity. Learning to read life's events from a different perspective. It's not eye for an eye. If we see like Chico Xavier suffering, not necessarily he did something bad, but he actually asked for the sufferings to teach us a lesson that you don't wait to be healthy to help others, because it's never going to happen. It's the opposite. To be healthy, you need to help others. That's the rule of the spirits. If we want to get better in our lives. And as he said, even in the movie that we watched recently, Mothers of Chico Xavier, he was really like shaken up, and the lady who was taking care of him said, Chico, don't go to the center. You have a back pain and this. And he said, if I wait to be healthy, to do what I need to do, I'm never going to do anything, because it's never going to happen, the perfect day. How many people say that nowadays? Even Dr. Post reports it in Science. Many people expect the perfect life to help others, and Science tells you help others to be in that perfect day. Just like the Psalms are saying. So back to the story. Amalia reports, and if it seems personal to you, I will reassure you, it's not personal. Everything we're saying belongs to the universal reality here. Many people in the internet usually mail us or call us saying, and I cannot see who they are, and they say, Vanessa, what you said the other day sounded so much like my life. So, I don't know, because I cannot see who is there. So if it seems personal to any of us here, it's not personal. It's universal. It fits everyone. Of course, our obsessors don't like it, because as much as we learn about it, we are liberating ourselves from suffering. And when we go away home, we need to watch out, because sometimes they come to us and say, oh, she was saying this to you and to them, and don't do it because it was a personal thing. And then we're still imprisoned in their mindset, because we'll never go wrong doing the things that the spirits tell us, and we share. We are sharing. We're not telling. It's not our truth. I'm also learning myself. I have a long run. So Amalia reports to us that Father Germain said that lady that spent 32 years in coma, she was in a previous life a queen of some location. Powerful, wealthy. She ruled over people's lives. it's different from being a queen today. Because today you have human rights, unless you are somewhere else where life is, ruled still by the emperor or the queen or the king. But in Western society, we are sure that there are still human rights. But at that time, no. Being a queen, she could tell any of us, like, stop doing this and do that, and we'd say, yes, ma'am, and we will do it. So she was used to having power. One day, a new guy, quite young, handsome, appeared in the palace. She wasn't married. She looked at him and fell in love immediately. But he was quite young. So she knew people were not going to approve, etc. So she kept to herself the feelings she had. And he was quite charismatic. He would talk to everybody. People would love him. And women would fall in love with him immediately. And he had such a respect for the queen. Because he was young, so he would look at the queen like with this very respectful love and never approach her. So she didn't know about his deep respect for her and admiration, and he didn't know that she loved him deeply. But the day she observed that he was getting people's attention, especially women, she got so jealous that she told herself, if he's not going to be mine, he's going to be nobody's. What did she do? You know the Rapunzel story? But the reverse, because now it's a guy. She then imprisons him in a tower, in an island, and does not allow anybody to see him. She tells the guards, you go there and give him food. Do not allow anybody. Not even you should see him. He should see nobody. If he's not mine, he's nobody's. So she isolated him from everybody. And because he's a man, he couldn't let the hair grow that much. He couldn't skip away. He stayed in prison for 32 years. The day she was about to die, she got that feeling. I'm gonna free him up, because now this is it. She freed him right before dying. Soon after he died, she suffered in the spiritual realm, says Father Germain. And when he died, they met in the spiritual realm, and he told her how much he loved her, and vice versa. And he said to her, look, I'm okay with you. I forgive you, because what you did was out of love. It's crazy love, but it was love. So you're good with me. You're good. He forgave her. She felt forgiven. But then comes the spirit mentors. And they're like, okay, we're happy that you guys are getting along, that you love each other. But, and then she said, yeah, I know it's not right what I did. The mentor said, well, we're going to plan a life in which the two of you stay together and devote your lives to one another. And then she interrupted and said, no, no, no. Before that life, I want to experience one whole life being imprisoned just like him. So I learned my lesson and never do that again. So she volunteered to be in prison some way. Of course, you don't plan these things counting on other people's mistakes. How many people think, yeah, I killed somebody, so I'm going to plan the next life, I want to be killed. That's not good. You're counting on somebody else's mistake. So you come, to terms with your conscience? No. We don't hope that somebody's going to do any harm to us. That's not going to be willing that others do that, so we make it up. It's not good. So in that case, we volunteer to experience something that does not involve somebody else. In this case, being prone to catalepsis, and for such a long type of state of catalepsis or coma would make it up. In that case, Father Germain reminds us, so when you judge her, thinking that she's being punished, you're wrong, and you're not kind and charitable, he says, because she actually volunteered to experience this. She wanted to experience this, to learn how never do that again. Well, this tells us about another type of charity we never thought before, because some people think that charity is doing something good to others externally. But what about the charity that comes in our minds? Talking about closer events, even in America, if we revisit the life of the great Abraham Lincoln, he used to say, when I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad, and that's my religion. And they report that Abraham Lincoln had bipolar depression. A severe, I read the book about the reports on his bipolar depression. Dramatic, at a time in which we didn't have the medications we have today. So he suffered a lot. Because the medications they had at the time were brutal and had terrible side effects. And he was the president of this country at the most crucial time. If he hadn't proclaimed the freeing of the slavery and the whole 9 yards of what they did, we wouldn't have one United States of America. The unity had been compromised. And he had severe mental disorder. And they say he only found relief in little actions of charity in his daily life. So if we still doubt that we can help other people, here's a true account of somebody who had a severe mental disorder, which is bipolar depression, and no medication. He had a whole country to, stand for, and his only way out was doing good to others. No wonder the gospel according to Spiritism says without charity there is no salvation. He's right. When I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. Feel it. The good things that we do and how they make us feel good. And we feel so sorry when people don't know that feeling. That's why we need to teach our children every day. And I am personally very grateful to Spiritism and to my grandmother, my grandparents, who really taught me since early age. My grandmother would say, come here, see the suffering of these people. She wouldn't say, no, don't see it. No, don't see it so you don't be. No, see it so you help. What we do to our children today is so sad because we prevent them from actually, just like for Buddha, no, don't see the suffering. Because he is really a missionary, he finds suffering and goes to help humanity. If we are good parents, we teach our children to go and help the suffering ones, according to Spiritism. Dr. Stephen Post reports, and here's a whole website. If you want the website, email us at the Spirit Society of Baltimore, and I can send you the whole report. Every year, Dr. Post has a report. It's good to be good report. And he says, amongst many things, like pages after pages, that people who volunteer feel physically healthier. They feel greater sense of purpose in life. They feel greater sense of well-being, have stress levels lowered, feel happier, almost like 100%, 96%. Greater emotional health, and they feel it helps them with recovery from loss and disappointment. All the reports say alcoholics. We were in New York last September, Carlos and I, Kirsten and Daniel and Sarah, to support the event in New York with Dr. Post and the Mount Vernon Spiritist Center, in which he was giving the full report about it. He was saying science proves now it's 1 + 1 = 2, that if we reach out to others, if we volunteer and help people, we are healthier. We're better. Not perfect, but better than the average people. We're less depressed. Alcoholics get out of alcoholism if they help others or other alcoholics get out of it. So we need to find a way to volunteer. And thank God in this country, there are millions of ways of volunteering. If you have internet, you are one click away from actually finding organizations everywhere that would be welcoming volunteers. So, as he said, it's good to be good. So Lincoln was right. The ancient Hebrews were right. When we refresh somebody, we feel refreshed. Well, what else? They say that volunteers actually have less trouble sleeping, less anxiety, less depression, better friendships and social networks, better sense of control over chronic conditions. They're not saying if you volunteer, you are going to have no health problems, etc. They're just saying you're going to feel better and more in control. And isn't that all we need? So if you Google, it's good to be good report, Dr. Stephen Post, you're going to have the full report every year. He got $9 million from the amazing John Templeton years ago to say, found the Institute of Research for Unlimited Love, for research on unlimited love, and sponsor research on this to show that when you really reach out, you are happier. Let's pause here a minute. Many people would say, but you know, I see so many people happy out there and they're drinking, using drugs, having sex with whomever, only narcissistically looking at themselves in the mirror, and suddenly they step somewhere and they have their faces destroyed. Because that happened recently to a model, right? So you never know tomorrow. Are they really happy, we ask? If you talk to them, they're not. That's why they are using drugs. Because they are escaping away. That's why they are having sex with whomever. That's why they are narcissistically looking at themselves in the mirror day and night and night and day. They're trying to find something. They're addicted to their own persona. And one day they're going to find a way out. We're talking about true happiness. The one in which you can sleep. How many actors? Let's talk about Marilyn Monroe. And Demi Moore. And many others. Marilyn Monroe, very soon, We're going to have a whole program at Cardiac Radio to talk about Marilyn Monroe in the afterlife. Chico Xavier brought to the world a message by the reporter, Humberto de Campos, Brother X, about his interview with Marilyn Monroe in the spiritual realm. 7 years after her passing. She passed away in 62, 69, they brought the account. And they asked her, because she was stunning, she was the sex symbol, she was everything, she had it all. And people thought she committed suicide. Has she committed suicide or not? We're going to see more at Cardiac Radio, but for tonight we're going to say, she said quite clearly that because she was fully centered on herself, and as a woman, she was not controlled in her sex life, she really lost her pathway. And when she died, she didn't die alone. She said, when I woke up, because the maid turned on the light of my bedroom, I looked at myself on bed, and I looked at myself where I was. I was shocked. And then I saw two entities at the corner of my bedroom, obsessors. And then she says, from there on, I prefer not to tell what happened because it was very hard. Very hard. She tells about spiritual obsession, etc., etc. So in the eyes of the world, it's just a beauty. In the eyes of herself, it's a true disturbed mind. She said she suffered from depression and anxiety. Much like Michael Jackson, she had to take pills after pills to stay awake and to sleep. She really struggled. But she says, I spend the whole day just thinking about myself. And having everybody in my life just to serve me. How many of us are not even Hollywood actors, and we're just like that? We manipulate everybody around our lives with our pains, sorrows, and anguishes. And we think people need to serve us. And we don't actually serve anybody because we think we are in need. And according to this, if we continue that way, we are never going to get out of this. We need to give a new step in our lives and free the people in our lives, not enslaving anybody like the queen who was enslaving somebody because of her whims. In the gospel according to Spiritism, we knew this all along. Chapter 15 says, if you volunteer, you're going to be happier. If you help others, you're going to be happier. And even Paul, the apostle, said that. And that is the reason why the Spirits say, because charity belongs to a God's law. It's a law in life. The Spirits say, on chapter 11 of the third part of the Spirit's book, they say, look, if you want to be happy, you need to fulfill God's will and God's laws. Charity is a law. If we don't follow it, we are outlaws. Question, are we outlaws now? Because if we are not charitable, we are an outlaw. Are we? Can we say, oh, it's because I can't? Mm-mm. There must be a way. Let's see how. Let's see how they say. They say this law of charity is overlapped with justice and love. So when we are charitable, we're being just and we're practicing love at the same time. There's no charity without justice and love. So there's not such a thing like, oh, I'm helping this and that's why I'm not helping that. Because when we help somebody, indirectly or directly, we help the whole world. So they say that this law is the most important law seen through This, humans can advance the farthest in the spiritual life, and it sums up all the others. This is question 648 of the Spirit's book. In this book, we're going to see that they talk about the definition of justice, the definition of charity, and about love, and especially filial love and maternal love. They say that the foundation of justice is precisely what Leo read to us at the beginning in Joana de Angelis' book. Do to others what we'll have them do unto us. In the book Genesis, the heaven and hell actually, there is an account that was true. There was a lady who had a farm, and she had a nephew with her. The nephew was quite young, and the aunt was a little bit older. The nephew was so lazy. You know, nowadays teenagers always say, I'm so bored, I'm so bored, I'm so bored. And actually, you know, it's all an excuse to say, I'm lazy. You know, because you always find something to do. We all have a brain. And there's no excuse like, I'm so bored, that's why I'm doing nothing. No, find something to do. And that's how this nephew was. He was feeling bored, and the aunt was there cooking, cleaning, working in the farm, and he would just sleep, wake up, do nothing, to the point that she got so sick, she died. Because she was doing all the works in the farm, and for a woman it was a lot of work. He was helping with nothing, not even taking the trash out. True account, reading the heaven and hell. And then what happened in the afterlife? Well, after that death, he dies in an accident. And then Kardec brings the story of what happens to the spirit in the afterlife. And when they bring the nephew, he says, it's almost as if I learned that it's almost as if I had murdered my aunt. Because I really vampirized her life. I took advantage of her resources, the physical resources as well. It's a new concept, because what we're saying here is that if we want to be just, we need to do to others what we would like what we would like them to do to us. This is Kardec, and at Kardec Radio we have this challenge. Everybody's invited to participate, because when Kardec explains this in the Spirit's book, he says one thing is to desire for others what we would desire for ourselves, and the other is to desire for ourselves what we would desire for others. So if you want, you can write a paragraph or two why you think these two are different, as Kardec said, and send it to us. A committee is going to evaluate. The winner is going to come to the show of February 25th and explain live why they think that's different. And then at the end, we're going to send the 6 basic books of Kardec, which in our minds, we think it's a true treasure. For some people, it's like, oh, is that it? I would prefer a car. Yeah, but this can get you to heaven. The car, not necessarily. So it's not drivable. So the concept of charity, as Kardec said, is totally different, because as he asked the spirits, what is the true concept of charity then? According to Jesus' understanding, is this concept. That's why Father Germain was saying to Amalia, you're not charitable when you're judging, because he says, the spirits said through the mediums at Kardec's time, being benevolent towards everyone, indulgent towards imperfections of others, and forgiving offenses. Now, this tells us a lot. Because if we want to follow through this law, not to be an outlaw before God, because we think, oh, nobody's seeing what I'm doing at home. You are. And just like the queen, no matter if the great spirits tell you now you're going to live a good life, oh, your enemies are going to say, oh, I forgive you, you're not going to forgive yourself. So no matter if nobody sees what we're doing, as long as we're seeing, the judge is within, what happens in the afterlife. If we're suffering now, we're going to suffer much more later. No doubt about it. And they say, we need to be good to everyone. What does it mean? Somebody comes to us and say, can you clean the dishes? Can you wash the dishes? And we say, no, I don't want to. We're not charitable. Oh, no, I will only do it if you pay me. That's not charity. One. The other thing is, if, for example, somebody comes and says, can you clean this floor? Or can you go to the groceries for me? And you're like, no. If my boss asked me, I would, because there's self-interest. Here they are saying to have goodwill towards everyone. Somebody calls me and says, Vanessa, can I talk to you now because I'm not feeling good? I'm never going to say, no, I can't, I don't have time for you. But if President Obama calls me, oh yeah, President Obama, anytime. 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 3 a.m., Sunday. That's not being benevolent. Benevolence means it's bene, meaning good, volence, meaning will, having goodwill towards everyone. No wonder Divaldo Franco once told this true story of a bishop in New York, of a huge congregation, and he announced a new task to be developed. And he asked two ladies who were already truly committed to many other tasks, and he asked them, after the mass, please, such and such, come and see me. And they came and said, but your eminence, look, we're already committed to so many tasks at the church. Why don't you invite somebody else who has never done anything? And he says, true story. Because those who are committed already to do something, they can actually commit to do more because they know how to discipline and manage their time. That's why when people tell Vanessa, I'm not going to bother you, calling you, emailing you, because you have a lot of things. And I ask, have I ever told you that I'm busy and I don't have time for you? Never, so there's no excuse. Because we always find time. And I remember a lady, a spiritist lady, saying, I'll give this task to you because I know you're already committed to these others. Because if I give to somebody else who is not committed to anything, maybe they're never going to make time for it. So, this is being good-willed, because we're used to being good-willed to everyone. Are we? Because if we're not charitable. And it doesn't stop there. It says we should learn also to sweeten the imperfections of others. When people have imperfections, it's like we say, yes, I understand. They have their limitations. So it's like Jesus used to do. The disciples would fight among themselves. We can read this in the book Boa Nova by Humberto de Campos, Brother X. He says that Peter would come and say, Master, you should trust me because I'm the elderly one. And John, who was the younger one, said, Master, trust me, not Peter, because he's old, I'm young. And Jesus would see it. He would not come and say, you guys, stop fighting. And he would say, okay, guys, keep it cool. Hold on, let's wait. And Peter would deny him once and twice, and the third time, and he would still know beforehand that he would deny, but he would become the rock of the foundation of the teachings. This is Jesus, our model. Not Spider-Man, not Superman. Jesus is our model. Not Lady Gaga, not Lindsay Lohan who goes to prison all the time, not the girls who go the catwalk at Victoria's Secret. No, they are not our models. Jesus is our model. If we follow their guidance, we're going to be in trouble. But if we follow Jesus, we're never going to be in trouble. Never. We should not even follow the footsteps of the people who come and give lectures here. No, why? Because they are sharing their works. What they do with their lives is their business. But what I do with my life is my business. And he is the guiding model. I cannot say, hey, mentor, I didn't do this because when I listened to Kirsten, she was giving talks and one day she killed somebody. I know I can say this because you're sisters. So, and like, from there on, I stopped coming to the Spiritist Center. And the Spirits are going to say, really? Who is your guiding model? Kirsten? Not in these books. Jesus. So if you stop something because of Kirsten, Vanessa, Leo, Daniel, Alba, whomever, it's a poor excuse. Because your guiding model is Jesus. So much so that he told us that not only we should have goodwill towards everyone and respect people's limitations, but also forgive offenses. And recently, I learned something quite peculiar that a great mind that I still don't know how to pronounce his name, one day I will. I was watching this video and he said, Jesus was so right when he talked about forgiving offenses because offenses are about memories. How many people have already changed since what they've done and we're stuck at that very moment? They moved on, they changed, they are a whole new person, and we're still there stuck. We see this every Monday in the disobsession meetings. There are people past like hundreds of years who are different people. And the spirits are, no, I don't like that person. Because what they did to me in a previous life, they killed me and my family. And now they're good and charitable and kind. So who is suffering? The person? No. We, because we're stuck with the memory that we created. Offense is a memory. It's not a person. So if we take offense, we're choosing to take offense. Because offense is not a person. What a great explanation. It's true. When somebody does something, it's not them, it's how we take it. Sometimes you don't want to hurt anybody. You just say something and they take offense. They're like, oh, they said this to me. Not necessarily, but we take offense and then we go home, hate this person, plan revenge, create a whole plot against. Sometimes it's a social plot. Start emailing people, oh, this person, that person. And it's a whole killing of the person's image. And the person is moving on. And we're stuck. No wonder Jesus said, charity also encompasses forgiving offenses. Because the offense is within. It's not outside. So this is the whole complex of charity. Different from giving food and money. A little deeper into the love of enemies, which is the hardest part. The enemy is within. Jesus didn't take any of us as enemies. Why? Because he knew people were doing it with themselves. And in the Gospel, in the Spirit's book, question and answer 887, they say that if it's hard to love enemies, we can give a step by doing two things. Forgiving them, meaning, freeing ourselves from those offenses and memories, and returning good for evil. If those people come to us and say, hey, can you now help me? We're not going to say, oh, really? Now you want my help? Or we help, but then we come to friends and say, now they want my help. After all they've done. So then we're not doing good for evil. And worse, if we see our enemy suffering and say, you see how they are now? Yeah, we can pass that later. Thank you, Daniel. So what is the difference between charity and almsgiving? In Portuguese, for people who don't know this word almsgiving, it is smaller. What is the difference between that is smaller and charity? Is there a difference? Mm-hmm. And if we go to the Spirit's book, again, question 888. It's a beautiful excerpt, and it's worth reading a little bit about it. So we hear from the Spirit of Saint Vincent de Paul, who was actually the man for charity. And actually we have in Baltimore a church in downtown that is dedicated and has Saint Vincent de Paul as the patron. Something for us spiritists to keep in mind, and it's close by the harbor, to know that he's really keeping a watch nearby, and he belongs to the Spiritist codification. So what if he's really in the neighborhood? So they say, well, almsgiving is not a problem, but the way you give it is a problem. If I have something, they say, and give it humiliating people, it's not charity. Say, okay, here it is, money. I don't use it, so you can keep it for you. That is the opposite of charity. Because they say true charity is always good and benevolent. It is demonstrated both in the act itself and in the way it's done. A service rendered with graciousness has double value. But if it's rendered with haughtiness, arrogance, the recipient's need compels him or her to accept it, but his or her heart will hardly be touched. Remember that in God's sight, ostentation erases the merit of benevolence. That's why Jesus said, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And how many people may come and say, well, here it is, my money. And they are really showing the whole world that they are paying and they are doing it. It's not charity. The true charity is when we give, because we never know, as they say, if tomorrow the very person is going to save us. You remember No Solar when André Luiz, he comes and he learns that there is, besides his mom, one other lady that used to pray for him? Yeah? And when he was incarnated as a physician, physicians, like, sometimes they think they're gods. And she used to come very poor, in need, and with a husband that was troubled health-wise. And André Luiz was like, okay, oh my God, I have to do this. But he was good, like dealing with it, though deep inside he was not truly charitable. But because she was a good heart, she was thankful to him. She used to pray for the doctor. And she was one of the people that helped him in the afterlife when he died, her praise. And she didn't know she was doing this to help him. So it's good to know, the spirits say, that in helping others, we're actually helping ourselves. And that's not selfishness, it's self-love. If we don't love ourselves, we're not going to love anybody. So, in that line of thought, we learn that it's good to be good. So good that there are benefits in giving. That's why we made this flyer to you, to all of us. Emmanuel, did you know Chico Xavier psychographed a whole book entitled Caridade, Charity? The whole book, several spirits. And there is even a message by Dr. Bezerra de Menezes entitled Money. He talks about money in the spiritist perspective. And there is this message by Emmanuel. And he says, before those whom you aid, do not think that charity is a prerogative solely on your part. Count the blessings that you collect from those whom you support. And sometimes it's just a smile. How happy are we when we call our credit card and the lady is nice? I'm like, oh, thank you so much for being nice and understanding. And they're like, really? Yes, because it's not so common what you're doing. Because usually people are so rough. And I pray for her. I'm like, I don't know who you are, but God bless you and your family. And when you go change your oil, and the guy at Jiffy Lube doesn't try to sell you other things. And on the contrary, he's nice and say, look, talk to your husband about these things you should look at. Or I did this extra for you. I'm like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Little things. Or at work, when somebody says, no. I remember I had a colleague of mine who is retired now. He was like a mentor to me, and he said, Vanessa, go travel where you need to do. I'll do this lecture for you. And now I bless him day and night, night and day, day and night, night and day. And I say, retire, go to Nosso Lar or somewhere similar, because you're so good to me. What if we do this apparently little things, even if somebody smiles? How many times we get to work and we're a little worried, and the janitor comes by and says, hi, how are you? And I'm like, somebody talk to me. Because usually they come talk to you about some problem. But that time it was just like no strings attached. It was just about, hi, how are you? I'm like, hi, how are you? How was your vacation? How was your holiday? And it just feels good. And we bless that person for smiling at us, for saying hi, for without any personal interest, just saying hi. How important is it to look at the cashier? I'll never forget every time we were with Divaldo Franco, Raul Teixeira. God bless Raul's in his recovery. They would go to the check-in. They would look at that person, both Divaldo and Raul, all the time. They would never take for granted a minute of somebody who was at the restaurant, coffee shop, or the cashier, or the check-in lady or guy. They would always pay attention and look at the persons like a true brother and sister. Do we do that? We come to the check-in and like, I know who you are. Look, can we do this fast? Come on, you're going to charge me for this. And we create them problems. The other day, I was not driving well. And then Mentor Joseph said, do you think you're being charitable that you're driving? To the driver behind you, you're upsetting them the way you're doing. Because you don't, put the arrow when you're crossing and you're speeding up, etc. You're bothering them. You're creating stress to others. I'm like, oh my God, I never thought about it. But it's true, and then they start cursing us. And then we get places, and that energy is with us, and we never think about it. So that's why Emmanuel is saying, the benefits in giving. And we think we're doing something like the SSB. Oh, can you do this to help us? I'm helping the SSB. But look at the many advantages of giving. First, says Emmanuel, we realize that we have something to give, our advantage. 2, we are aware of our responsibilities before others. I cannot simply say, I'm going to stay home if I have a talk to come and give, passes to give. It's irresponsible. Though nobody's paying us, but it's irresponsible. There is an event I am accounted for, and I simply, for some other events, I simply don't come. It's irresponsible. It is also a healthy warning in relation to the duties that fit us in preserving the assets of life. You know what it means? Do we really grasp what he's saying? I meditated deeply on this, and I'm like, wow, a healthy warning in relation to the duties that fit us in preserving the assets of life. We don't live alone. We need to help the community. Otherwise, we perish. That's what he's telling us. Patience with our obstacles and minor ailments. Because instead of coming and saying, my life is so hard, we're going to say, it could be harder. When we help other people, we figure out, it could be harder. Man, it could be harder. So I'm fine with what's happening. I become more patient. The lesson on the trial that we're faced with. So then I learn, as they say in the Heaven and Hell book, with other people's problems, I learned what not to do. So I never get there. And he says more. I acquire some experience. So that's why we should push our children. Go, volunteer. So you get more experience without incurring in that mistake. So you know beforehand, if you go that route, for example, helping drug addicts. If you help drug addicts, it's likely. This is wild. But it's possible that if we expose our children to people, and to helping people who are drug addicts, they're never going to be there. Because they're going to see the sad story of drug addiction before they even try it. They're going to see that and say, me? Never. Before they even get to the age of being exposed to drugs. Maybe it's a preventative. Maybe dramatic. But it's possibly to be a preventative. Because sometimes people offer us drugs, and because we want to be, let's pay attention to this, because we want to be cool with our friends, we just say, yeah, I'm going to try today. And then tomorrow again, and after tomorrow, and when I least see, I'm addicted. So if our friends say once, say, thank you. Never. Go home. You don't want to be cool to people who use drugs. Ever. Ever. Because they're going to be buried way before you even imagine. So let's think on this very deeply. And he says, when we do good, we receive vibrations of sympathy. And Chico Xavier learned with Emmanuel that these people become advocates for us, just like André Luiz. They come before God and say, I know this person made a mistake, but they did so much good to me. Minimize their pain. Who doesn't need a good lawyer? We all do. So, get your lawyers. we need to get our lawyers. This is self-love, not selfishness. Because when we're helping others, we're never selfish. And if that is good to us, it's God's law. Pleasure from it is just in God's hands. And the assistance we receive to our wider support in the service to others. Because, for example, when I go volunteer at a helping out mission, maybe I'll meet somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and then I'll get a job. Or I'll find a good doctor that I need. Or I'll find a good nutritionist that I need. Or a good personal trainer that comes and volunteers there. So I go help others, and I find my way also to network. I'm not saying we go there with self-interest, but know that inevitably, when we help others, we're going to make connections and we're going to be stronger in our life's problems. And we will find comfort in the suffering imposed on us because we're going to make friends, true friends. Not friends for party, because those, the minute you're down, they go away. Even in the Spiritist movement, they go away. And moral credit, he says, that is recorded in our favor by the discarnate and incarnate spirits who support the person who is in greater crisis and hurdles than others. Just like the lady again. So he repeats it again and again. Moral credit. People talk nowadays about credit report. Question is, are we moral credit good? Are we good there? I cannot judge others. Nobody can judge others. Chico Xavier always said, never ever judge others. And Jesus said that. Who is to cast a stone? But how is our moral credit doing? We need to verify because everything we do is recorded. Bottom line, if we do 3 practical tips to sum it up and finish our conversation here, take home message for all of us. 3 practical tips we can give based on the gospel according to Spiritism and on the mentor Benjamin Franklin, because Ben Franklin is the mentor of the SSB. For us to think about it, we'll give you something. Something that you can work on throughout the year. A notepad that you can choose and take home, and we have special ones for children. You can take one that you like, the color you like. Take it, learn about this, write it down, and keep the journal of charity throughout the year. And if you want any color that is not there, like pink, it's here. If you want any pink. And the girls, but Angelina is going to share with them, right? You can give it to Juliana and Luciana. Sarah. Or Sarah. The practical tips. Everybody got one? You can pass this around if it's a little faster. And a pen. And you can take a pen here from the Spirit Sought About more. Okay? So you can write it down. I would say Juliana, Luciana, yeah. Here is a pen. You can take one and pass around. Okay? So, this is the Journal of Charity, because Ben Franklin was like this. He had a journal for him. He would have the genius. He was genius, founding father of the United States of America, and he had a list of 13 virtues. He was so smart. 20 years old, he figured this out, and according to the gospel, The first tip says Paul the Apostle on chapter 15. Write it down if you can. Please, write it down. What is the first tip? Paul the Apostle says, the test of charity. The test of charity. What is it? He says, chapter 15, item 20. Submit your actions to the test of charity, and your conscience will respond to you. Question: what is this test of charity that Paul says in item 20 of the Spirit's book, chapter 15? Test of charity. So, if I do something, I would say, test of charity, is this charity? What is that? Who knows the answer? What is this test of charity? Somebody? Daniel? Oh, microphone? You want the microphone? No. Who wants to help us figure out what is this test of charity that he's talking about? What is this test of charity? See how the gospel according to Spiritism is never outdated, so updated, so modern. Test of charity? What is it, Kirsten?
I could be wrong, but perhaps a sort of research we could do with ourselves. Go do charity and see how you feel. Like Abraham Lincoln says, when I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I do bad. So the test of charity is go and do it, see how you feel, and your conscience will respond to you. Your conscience will say, yay, little mini dance of happiness for charity. I did something good. It responds. We learned with Dr. Post that we're hardwired. And also there's other research about this reward feeling and neurologically that happens. And then when we're not doing something good, in science they call it reward deficiency. And that's when they say that we're hardwired for this. When we're not doing it, our body craves a sensation of satisfaction versus pleasure. So it's really interesting that way that God created us to be, to progress ultimately. That is the ultimate, I mean, we're hardwired for evolution. No matter what we do, we cannot escape it. We have to move forward.
Is item 10 or
10, 20, 20. It's the last item. No, 10. 20 is another chapter. It's 10. Paul is the last. He's the spirit message of item of chapter 15. Yasko.
I was thinking like I'm gonna do this thing, so I have to think, why am I doing that? Am I doing this to make the advertisement about myself to others, to have something to talk tomorrow to my colleagues, say how good I was? So it's something that would benefit myself first, not from my heart to the others. So if I really thinking first, even unconsciously about me first, how much I will gain. For me, I think this is another name, is egotism or something like that. So charity is really for the others, for the benefit of others, not me first,
Yasko. Jesus said that we should not, expose ourselves. But charity has a two-way road. It's always going to benefit us. To say that I'm going to be... Exactly. But even Emmanuel said, it's worth doing good, no matter what, than doing nothing. If you say, no, I'm not going to do it. I remember when I was in graduate school, doing work with the poor children in the suburbs of a city in the state of São Paulo. And I came as the leader of that class. saying, guys, we need food and clothes, etc. Can you participate? And one of my friends said, Vanessa, do you do this because you feel good? Don't you think it's selfishness? No, I think it's self-love. Before Dr. Post said, it's good to be good. Because, as Emmanuel said, even if I do it to feel good, it's not selfishness, because you're doing good. Even it is, like, for example, let's say a millionaire comes and say, for example, the hospital in Maryland. You go there, and the donors have their names written on the hallways. Do you care? I don't care. As long as they're doing good. If they donate the money and condition it to have their names on the wall, I don't care if somebody tomorrow says, Vanessa, I'll give you the headquarters of the SSB as long as you have my name on a plaque for the rest of the existence of the SSB. I don't care. As long as don't ask us to put the name of the center as their name. But I don't care having a whole wall in gratitude to them because they're doing good. Now, they could do more. They could give the money and not let anybody know. And we have anonymous donors that people have no idea. No idea. And they won't know. But being anonymous is not everything. Because if I'm anonymous, but I feel proud of myself, it doesn't defeat the cause. So it's not a problem. The problem is not to do it. And the test of charity, in other words, from what you've said, is this. This is the test of charity. Do to others what you would like to receive. So if somebody needs something, do I give it to the person or not? Well, if you were in that person's shoes, would you like to receive it? Then give. That's the test of charity. It's the opposite of selfishness. So that's why it's worth, as Emmanuel said, no matter if at the beginning we do it because of an obligation, one day it's going to become second nature. Even if today we do charity because it's profitable or beneficial to us, tomorrow we're going to be just like Mother Teresa. You asked her, why have you done this? Just because. Divaldo Franco and many others, just because. And because it's the right thing to do. For some people, it's going to be, well, because I network, or because I feel good, or because my mom wants me to do it, my dad, but one day it's going to become second nature. So that's the test of charity. And let us remember, what we're saying here is what the Spirit said, not us. And they say, second tip, willpower. I think that's the most powerful tip they give. Because Paul the Apostle said something quite striking. He says, in order to practice the good, the action of will is always necessary. So this thing about waking up and volunteering needs willpower. And that's a good thing. Because when our willpower is weak, our life is in bad shape. So we need to be good. And you know what strikes the most? The second part of what he says. So don't be surprised if when you're volunteering or helping others, it demands effort. Because it pertains to the dynamics of it. Cannot be another way. That's the rule of life. The rule of engagement in charity is We need to put will to work. There's no such thing, oh, I wake up and I drive my car. It feels so easy to go there, volunteer. Not on earth. That's Jupiter, not earth. On earth, to do good, we need to put a lot of effort. Now, listen to the opposite if we don't do this. It's quite surprising. He says, but to practice evil, what do we need? Idleness and negligence are often enough. You know what it means? If we feel lazy, we're doing evil. Whenever we are lazy, we're in the pathway to evil. Whenever we don't care about people, we are evil. We're in evil practice. Whenever we are like careless about people and things, we're practicing evil. That's the bottom line. If I know somebody has a problem and I don't care, I'm practicing evil. If I know an organization needs help and I don't do anything to help, I'm practicing evil. Bottom line. And this has nothing to do with SSB alone. It's the United States of America, the whole planet. It's easy to say Obama is not doing enough. But are we doing something to help him? Do we pray for him? Because if you cannot help him directly by paying the taxes is a way. Praying for him and his team is a way to help. But to complain, criticize, we're just following the traps of idleness and negligence. Whomever is the president, we're just saying Obama because he's the current president. Tomorrow is going to be another one, I don't know. But Paul, who is the expert in charity, he says, this is the second tip. Test of charity and then willpower. And that's why to keep an organization like this, we need a lot of willpower. Because spiritist centers are charity homes. We think charity is the Helping Up Mission, the Ronald McDonald House, the Believing Tomorrow Foundation, but this is also charity. When we give passes free of charge, we share these studies that take hours to put together. When we, not saying we bragging about ourselves, we're saying spiritists in general. The other day I was talking to a speaker who is not a spiritist. We don't blame them. But they were like, you know, if I come, I'll charge this and that. And then you ponder the works of Divaldo Franco, for example, giving talks in all different places, being 80 plus and never getting tired, going to small places, big places, or like Rotishir or Chico Xavier. If a spirit wrote a book through you and you were in financial constraint, would you find room to give an excuse for keeping some money for you to buy food? Some people would. Chico didn't. He was poor. His father was putting a lot of pressure on him and his family. And he said, guys, that's not how it works. To keep a spiritist center, we need a lot of willpower. And the question is, are we on the willpower practice or are we on the idleness practice? Like, whatever. If it closes tomorrow, you know, it is what it is. So let us think about it deeply, because it pertains to the topic tonight. And finally, according to Ben Franklin, the mentor of the SSB, as he said, the third tip would be imitate Jesus. Feel just like this child in the arms of Jesus, day and night, night and day. Because it feels like singing when Jesus is embracing us. We cannot even imagine what it is. But with Jesus, we can always ask this question: how can I be more charitable? In the whole sense of the word. And in that case, when we feel it, no wonder on Thursday we were singing the song of Happy Day. Because that's how it feels when we're charitable. It's always a happy, sunny day. No matter if we have bills to pay, problems, health problems, social problems, we can hold on to everything, keep marching, feeling it. Tomorrow is going to be another day. Knowing that maybe we don't have enough as we think, but it could be worse. And we can always give something to somebody else. Isn't this message beautiful? Isn't the message that the spirits bring to us so consoling and uplifting? If we had a choir here in person, we would say, oh, happy day. Really, because that's what the spirits say. That really feels like. And if we talk to people who spend their whole lives dedicating, devoting their lives, sacrificing their personal interest to help others, that's how it feels. Here we talk a lot because we're supposed to as giving talks. But in our daily lives, we may be very quiet. But deep inside, we feel like reaching out to others. And if we were working, busy, somebody knocks at our door and say, can you help me? I will stop everything to help this person. Whether my boss or the janitor, whether it's a student or faculty, whether it's the rocket scientist of the time or a junior scientist, I'll help all the time. And people will never know what we do on the behind the scenes of our lives, but we know. And we feel happy about it. That's why I'll never stop. No matter the challenges, we keep on marching because we know it's the way to go. So these are the tips. We would stop here. If you have a question or two, we'll open. And as soon as we're done, or a comment, and as soon as we're done, we're going to give the passes. If anybody has a comment or a question, we would open the line for you. Where's the microphone again? There. Okay. If you have a question or a comment? Sure.
When you were talking about this artificial happiness, how much far we are now in certain people went far from the true happiness. I was even whispering to you the Demi Moore case. It seems it is now fashion among youngsters to sniff that laughing gas.
Oh
Can you
my
believe
God.
you need a laughing gas to laugh artificially? To show to whom that you're happy? To whom you so that's how you deceiving yourself. And she deceived herself. That's how she ended up in the the emergency room. I think we cannot deceive ourselves, like you said,
That's sad.
Isn't it sad
Very.
how much
Very sad.
we are deceiving ourselves?
Yeah. I think
And kids.
Yasko, it's so important what you're bringing because it talks about the escape mechanisms. And then the question is why we do it. Because we're not being supportive to one another. Are we being supportive enough in our lives? Are we being supportive of our closest partners? Closest. Of our children?
Her daughter took her to this party. So her daughter thought was doing a favor to her mom.
By using the laughing gas.
Taking to the place where the laughing gas, plus the mix of other drugs that made her be in that situation. But can you believe this? So inside the family, you don't have the support that you're talking about? Or it's a wrong support?
Exactly. That's very hard when we feel the need of approval and we start hurting ourselves to await for this approval. It's great that you're bringing that, and it brings us the awareness that we need to be more supportive of one another. You know, we tell people, hug the people that you love. Hug them, kiss them. It's never too much. I mean, we need physical touch. How much do we touch each other? I mean, we're not saying abusing anybody, you know, but hug your loved ones and say, I love you. And you know, sometimes just taking people's hands and caressing it, science already shows it releases a lot of endorphins that calms people down. And it's great to do that. And it's charity to be supportive and just say sometimes, you know what, no matter what's happening, I love you. And that's it. I don't know how we're going to get out of this, but we love each other. Let's hug each other. And hug. Hug. And let's hug each other now then. Come on, don't be shy. Hug Carlos too. And Daniel. Go there, hug. Go. Everybody. Everybody hugging. Come on, hug. Why not? It feels good, right? It does. A hug is always good. It's better than drugs. Kirsten. Mini dance with a hug. Mini hugs. Hugs. It's always the good remedy. Right? Yeah. Should we do a whole fundraising with a hugging event? Learn to hug. Right? What is it? Come and hug. Hugging, hugging. We need a whole learning experience about hugging. Lulu, Juju, Angelina. Look at Carlos. You're funny, man. Feels good, right? Feels good? That's the best in the United States. You get a hug, but only if you come to the Spirit Settlement. So that's why we need to go crazy and hug people in the streets. Oh, I'm joking. Joking. This is just a joke. Or a dream. Let's say we're just dreaming, but I'm not the only one, right? There's going to be a day. So let us always ask ourselves, how can we be more charitable? And we don't need to start out there. Sometimes it's within our family. Yeah.
In Rio, I don't know if Carlos that is from Rio knows. There's a story of a guy, poor guy. He was called Mr. Kindness, Senhor Gentileza, because he would enter in the bus
And hug people.
and start not to hug sounds, but say good words to the people.
Oh my God.
Yeah, to all, how are you? How beautiful you are. Have a nice day, whatever. So he called Mr. Gentileza, Senhor Gentileza. So he was doing like this, entering free from the front of the bus, and then entering another bus or someplace and just say good words. You know, that's what was this famous guy. He could not hug because sometimes there are people that they don't like. But he would say good words. You know?
That's good. And we can do that by email. Instead of sending bad statistics and bad news to people and prejudice news, forget about that. And let's go. Or Facebook. I'm done with my Facebook account. It's too sad. I'm sorry, but it's sad there. And it's artificial, that's what I see. It's a lot of pretending to be happy and jealousy and rivalry, and I'm done. But what about sending emails, or if you're on Facebook, send Facebook messages? I've seen some people doing, like sending good news to people. You know, did you know that when you hug somebody, there is a 3 million molecules that are released on your, I'm saying to me because I don't know how many, of endorphins in your body. You can make people happy. Maybe they're going to need less antidepressants. Not saying it's our fault, but we can probably be the remedy as well, right? Exactly. And if we do, we can do the same and feel that effect on us. So let us meditate on this with our mentor, Ben Franklin. Prepare for the passes. Keep your journals of happiness, of charity. Let us feel.